Good evening, I'm Gotti Schwartz. Let's go now live to the White House on a historic day where President Trump is signing a bill just passed by the House to end the longest government shutdown in history, reaching 43 days today. The House voting 222 to 209 to send the bill to the president's desk. 2 Republicans voted against that bill. 6 Democrats supported it. That bill will fund the government through January 30th, and it paves the way for the government to reopen. It reinstates pay for federal workers and fully restoring SNAP food benefits to millions. Let's listen to what the president is saying right now.
American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions. They wanted to pay them $1.5 trillion, which would have really hurt our healthcare businesses and our recipients at levels never seen before. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country. In just a moment, I'll sign a bill exactly like we asked Democrats to send us all along, many days ago. This cost the country $1.5 trillion, this little excursion that they took us on. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and voted 15 times for a clean continuation of funding. There's never been a time when one or the other party ever didn't sign a continuation. It's just a continuation, not a big deal. It's a continuation, and we'll talk later. Yet the extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. I want to thank Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, as well as House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, Majority Whip Tom Emmer, and numerous other great Republican leaders and congressmen and senators who are here and who frankly spent a long time in Washington getting this thing to go away. I also want to thank the broad coalition of Americans that stood with us in this fight to reopen government, including the Teamsters, the American Federation of Government Employees, the Fraternal Order of Police, AMVETS, the National Small Business Association, the American Farm Bureau, the American Trucking Association. These are all incredible patriots. The Airlines for America, the Allied Pilots Association, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, and many others, unions and non-unions. Over the past 7 weeks, the Democrats' shutdown has inflicted massive harm. They caused 20,000 flights to be canceled or delayed. They departed so many times, so late. People were hurt so badly. Nobody's ever seen anything like this one. This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way. And they look very bad, the Democrats do. They deprived more than 1 million government workers from their paychecks and cut off food stamp benefits for millions and millions more Americans in need. They caused tens of thousands of federal contractors and small businesses to go unpaid, and the total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families. So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country. I also want to call for a termination to the filibuster so that this can never happen again. If we had the filibuster terminated, this would never happen again. And don't forget, we have another date coming up in the not-too-distant future. We can never let this happen again, and we should be able to pass really great legislation. So I say terminate the filibuster because, by the way, the Democrats will do it immediately if they ever assumed office, which hopefully they won't. Today we had the highest stock market price ever in all of the different markets. We set a record. It's the 48th time in the 9 months that I've been in office that we had this record set. So think of that, 48 times we had a record set. But today is the highest of them all. We're going to break new grounds. Nobody would have thought. I have with us not only the great political leaders, but the great business leaders of our country. They're standing right behind me and right really alongside of me. And if we would have told them a year ago that we'd be having stock prices this high, none of them, in fact, I just asked them that question, none of them would have believed it. And that inures to jobs and, very importantly, to 401ks, which have also set a record today, a record high for the people that have 401ks. And also, I want to thank Walmart because they came up with a fantastic study. It was the cost of Thanksgiving coming up and the cost of Thanksgiving from a year ago under Sleepy Joe Biden, and we're 25% lower this year than we were a year ago. And it's a very inclusive report. So I want to thank Walmart. They've done it for many years, but we believe in that, and we believe in that company. I want to also thank the 8 Senate Democrats who finally did the right thing in voting to end this craziness, this madness. But unfortunately, the vast majority of congressional Democrats were happy for millions of Americans to suffer. They really did suffer, too. And the Democrats admitted, they said, well, no, we finally have a point. Even though people have to suffer, we finally have a point. And that didn't work out too well for them. But they really went out and they could appease the fringe benefits of their far-left base. But that didn't work out because now their far-left base is angrier than ever before. We actually elected a mayor of New York City who happens to be a communist. When was that going to happen? Remember, I said all the time during my campaign, we will never be a socialist country. And that's right. We turned out to have a communist in New York City. And if you look at his views, those are the views of a communist, not a socialist. So this is no way to run a country. I hope we can all agree that the government should never be shut down again, end the filibuster, terminate the filibuster. It'll never happen again. So with my signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again for all Americans. Again, costs are way down. Energy is way down. Gasoline is at $2.50 a gallon versus $4.70 for the Democrats. And we think we're going to hit pretty close to $2 a gallon. That's like a really massive tax cut. It's the equivalent of that. And speaking of tax cuts, our great, big, beautiful bill is giving everybody in our economy, middle-income workers, low-income, everybody, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And it's no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and very importantly, no tax on overtime. You work overtime, there's no tax. That's among the things that add up to the biggest tax cut in history. And one other thing, you hear about rich people with deductions. Well, when you buy your car and you borrow money, you're allowed to now deduct the interest on that loan. So you can take that interest deduction, and what you can take is that interest payment and deduct it for income tax purposes. That's a tremendous tax cut right there. But it all includes fixing the health care system that Democrats broke with the disaster known as Obamacare. Obamacare was a disaster from day one. It's done nothing but go up. And if you remember President Barack Hussein Obama, when he came up with this crazy idea, he said everything's going to be great, rates are going to go down, payments are going to go down, everything's going to go down. It went the exact opposite, with the biggest increase of healthcare in any country. It's a disaster. And I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare. And I've had, I think, great support. I've even had Democrat support. So we want the money that would be going to the insurance company, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. Their stock prices have gone up by 1,000% in many cases, 1,000% over a short period of time, because our country stupidly pays them so much money with this Obamacare scandal. So I want the money to go directly to you, the people. And you go out and you'll buy your own health insurance, and you'll negotiate different plans, and you'll get much better insurance, and you will be an entrepreneur for yourself. So I'm always willing to work with anyone, including the other party. We'll work on something having to do with health care. We can do a lot better. We can do great. So much money is involved, and we're willing to pay so much money to the people. So we're going to pay a lot of money to the people. They're going to go out and buy their own health care, and we're going to forget this Obamacare madness. So with all of that, I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if you have questions. I think we really have a really great situation. We have a country that we love, and we have a country that's in great shape. As you know, we have now it's over $18 trillion invested in our country by other people and countries. That's a record. There's never been a country that had so much, and that money's going into also building new auto plants, new AI plants, new everything. We've never had a time like this. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for going. Thank you.
It's a great day. Well done.
And joining us now is senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, who is standing outside the White House right now. Gabe, just to recap, the president putting full responsibility for the government shutdown on the Democrats. He said he wants to see the end of the filibuster over in the Senate. A lot of questions to get to here, but first things first, for those that have been impacted by the government shutdown, for those government workers that have been stuck in limbo, do we have a timeline on how soon some of the back pay could be restored, how soon people could be back in the office that haven't been in the office? How soon is it going to be before money starts flowing again?
That agencies have already begun telling those federal workers to come back to work starting tomorrow. Now, as for when their full back pay will be handed out, we're out to the Office of Management and Budget and have not heard exact details on when that will happen. But I want to go back to the event that we just saw right there in the Oval Office, a rare nighttime appearance by the president, surrounded by his supporters in the Republican Party, as well as some business leaders that have been here for a private dinner. Significantly, Gotti, as you mentioned, yes, the president blaming the government shutdown squarely on Democrats. But something else as we look forward to potentially the next fight here, the president railing against Obamacare. That's something he's done before, but really stressing that he wants the Republicans to, quote, forget this Obamacare madness, suggesting that the next battle that we have ahead of us, with Democrats agreeing to potentially go into some negotiations over those Affordable Care Act subsidies. The president, at least according to that, doesn't seem to have much patience for that. And we should point out that he's been in public life now for quite some time, about a decade since he announced his run for president, and still has no concrete plan to replace Obamacare. Still, though, we could end up in this very same situation in a couple of months, perhaps early next year. It's potentially that we could head into another government shutdown, because we heard from the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries that they will continue, that Democrats do plan to continue the fight for those ACA subsidies. But back to what the president just said, blaming Democrats for those 20,000 flights that have been canceled, more than 1 million federal workers who have not been paid. The president, though, trying to tout his economic accomplishments, touting the record stock market. But then notably, Gotti, he did not take any questions. And there was the press pool was in there. My own colleague Garrett Hake was in there with the press pool, hoping to ask the president some questions about the shutdown, also about the revelations that we saw earlier in the day when House Democrats released emails regarding the Jeffrey Epstein case that mentioned President Trump multiple times. Republicans also released some 20,000 pages of documents. And now we just learned later on tonight that House Speaker Mike Johnson plans to bring before the House floor a vote next week, that he intends to bring that before a floor vote next week with regards to releasing the DOJ's Jeffrey Epstein files. But the president took no questions on that. His focus tonight is on reopening the government, Guy.
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House for us tonight. Gabe, thanks so much. Let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Melanie, we just heard the president putting the blame on Democrats and then talking about how he wants to do away with the filibuster. Is there an appetite for getting rid of the filibuster out in the Senate?
There is zero appetite in the Senate right now to get rid of the filibuster. This is something Trump has been calling for a long time, including in his first term. He started really calling for it again as the shutdown was dragging on. But in reality, those calls only really facilitated the fact that Republicans felt even more of a need to try to resolve this stalemate in another way. And that is ultimately what happened. They did give some minor concessions to Democrats. They agreed to allow a floor vote in the Senate on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies. They also, along with the White House, agreed to give workers back pay. That's something that's guaranteed in this deal, as well as reversing the layoffs that were initially instituted in the beginning of the shutdown. So that's ultimately the package that passed this evening in the House. But in terms of the filibuster, it is not going anywhere anytime soon. We'll see how long that lasts in future years, especially as some of these older sort of institutionalist members like Mitch McConnell get replaced with younger members. And by the way, this is not just a Republican debate. Democrats have debated this as well. Whenever a party gets a trifecta in Washington, this conversation comes up. For now, though, the filibuster is safe.
I don't see any problem. Back to the ACA, or as the president was putting it, Obamacare. He characterized it as a disaster from day one. I mean, he didn't mince any words there at all. I know that we've got this handshake deal, that there's going to be a debate on the floor over the ACA subsidies. But it doesn't sound like that's at all what the president's thinking here. Is there a framework that you've seen, or is there some sort of legislation to overhaul health care in a way that I believe he said something along the lines of like wanting the money to go directly to the people as opposed to the insurance companies? Like, is there a path for that, or are those just words right now?
It's complicated. I would say as far as the ACA subsidies, it looks very unlikely at this moment anyway that something is going to be able to pass both chambers and also be signed by Trump. I was really struck by just how hard he went after Obamacare and the subsidies, suggesting that there is no compromise when it comes to extending those tax credits, which are expiring at the end of the year. Nonetheless, Democrats in the Senate, they get to choose what bill they put on the floor in December as part of this handshake agreement. They are in active conversations right now with Republicans about what could potentially win over some of these Republicans, whether that's changing the eligibility requirements, lowering the income caps. They are trying to find a solution that would get enough Republicans on board. But when you have President Trump coming out so strongly, like he did just moments ago, saying enough with this Obamacare madness, I think was the direct quote, it makes it very, very hard to pass something. And that's not even talking about the House, where Speaker Mike Johnson at a press conference just an hour ago really dismissed the idea of extending those Obamacare subsidies. Instead, they are starting to talk about alternative proposals, like, for example, health savings accounts, where they try to put money in people's pockets so they can pick their own health insurance plans. But even that is complicated. And we were talking to health experts about just how viable something like that is. And really, it would dismantle the entire system. So there's a lot of questions. I do think, though, that the ACA subsidies are not looking good in terms of being expired at the end of this year.
Yeah, interesting, especially since that was the main sticking point, to see the president hammering that so viciously in what we just saw. Melanie Zanona, thank you so much for all of your coverage of this historic government shutdown. That's going to wrap up our breaking news coverage. There is much more available online at NBCnews.com.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.